Hello, everybody. My name is Sean Healy, and my company is Dragon Koi Coaching. Hey, I wanted to talk to you guys today about something that's come up a lot over my career in terms of consulting and talking with business owners and particularly studio owners. And that's the reality of independent contractor versus employee. So this is one that comes up really quite often, and depending on the state that you're in, depending on the size of your facility, depending on kind of what the norm is, in the Pilates and fitness industry, forever it's people have hired independent contractors, and the challenge with this, I think, is contractors come from historically, I guess, contractors are tradespeople, right? So if I, for example, wanted plumbing done in my house, I would hire a plumber. Now, a plumber is a contract. Let's say I'm a general contractor and I want this part of the job done. Then he comes in. I say, "This is what I want done. I want you to plumb the place." And he says, "Okay, this is what my schedule is. This is how it's going to work. This is what I'm going to do. What I do. You just hire me to do the job. I get it done, and we're good." The problem in our industry, and like I said, for years, for decades, when I first got into the industry, most people were contractors, and I think that there's some misunderstanding that's sort of rampant with what a contractor is versus an employee, and particularly for those people that are one of two: one coming out into the industry and wanting to start working for somebody. They think that they need to be an independent contractor. The other thing is, if you're starting a company, if you're going to own a studio or own a clinic, and you're hiring people that you want to hire as independent contractors versus employees, we got to understand the difference, and the risk is pretty great. If you hire people as independent contractors and you treat them as employees, you can get hammered for back taxes for something like 7 years or something like that. And I'm not an accountant, I'm not an attorney, but like I said, I've been around this long enough to know that this is a scary one. So, if you go to the IRS website, irs.gov, you can print up these handy dandy little lists here that sort of describe the differences. Pretty clear on what the difference is. So, let's take the studio example. So for example, as an independent contractor, if you're a contractor, are supposed to supply all of your own equipment. It's part of the thing. It's your company. You have total control over it, right? In a studio setting, we have all the equipment. We have people work for us, and so is that really, falling under that category of supplying your own equipment? Obviously not. Now, I think because the idea of contractor and what they do has sort of spread, I think that there's a little bit more understanding as long as you have contracts. So with a contractor, you have to have a contract. You're obligated to work with this person for a certain amount of time, right? So let's say it's a year, As an employee, a lot of states are at-will states. So I can hire you, I can fire you whenever I want, as long as it's not discriminatory. It's sort of up to me as an owner. So when we're looking at the difference between an independent contractor and a employee, as a contractor, I can't tell you what to do or how to do it, when to do it. You have to make your own schedule. You have to have your own skill set. You have to have your own business, whether it be a sole proprietor and you're using your social security number, or you have an LLC or something like that. The thing that's sort of a kicker, particularly in the studio industry with this, is you can't just work for me. You can't work at one facility. Otherwise, I, as an employer, am treating you like an employee, because this is the only place that you make your money from. Okay, so the difference is pretty clear cut. The problem is one, employers, studio owners, therapy clinic owners, a lot of the time don't really understand what a contractor is. I think that there's a logical understanding behind it, but a lot of people look at the money it's going to cost, the taxes, and so if you're a contractor, if I can hire you as a contractor, then I don't have to pay your taxes. It's up to you. It's nice. It's clean. If there was a way to create a situation like that where it was really nice and easy for me as an employer to only hire contractors, that would be awesome, because I really don't have to deal with any of your crap, in terms of money, in terms of taxes, in terms of insurance, any of that stuff, right? It's up to you as somebody that's working in my facility to provide a certain service to supply all of that, right? Now, as an employee, I'm supplying all of that. I have to pay my half of your taxes, right? I have to provide insurance for you. I have to market for you. It's up to me to provide a space and to provide this opportunity for you to make money for providing a service for me, right? The interesting thing for me with this, and I think that if you're somebody that's looking at starting a business and looking at this reality of contractor versus employee, I think what you'll find is when you really start looking at it, contractors are really, it's really nice to have contractors because, like I said, you don't have to deal with any of their stuff. That being said, it's a massive risk for you. And I'll start from kind of the top end, which is if you're treating them like an employee and they're a contractor and you're not paying taxes and stuff like that, then if you ever get audited, more than likely you will lose. And I've heard stories of people that have gone through the process of, it's kind of guilty until proven innocent, really, so they spent $40,000-$50,000 just defending themselves over a period of time to prove that they did the right thing. So if you're going to go down the contractor route, definitely talk to your attorney. Make sure you have really, really clear guidelines. You cannot treat them like an employee. And even to the extent, I had a colleague of mine that had gotten audited, and for her, luckily it worked out, but she had contractors. But excuse me, the auditor had said, I've been doing this for 25 years, and there's been 5 times in my entire career where somebody has gone through this process and not had to pay something. So it's not a clean thing, no matter how you do it. So, but I know studio owners that are very successful having contractors, and they've just gone to their attorney and they've gone through the process of getting contracts written up that are really clean and they're really specific with how they run their company, and that's great if you can do that. The other piece of this that I think is sort of in my mind, from a business growth potential perspective, it's really hard to brand your company when you can't tell anybody what to do, right? So if I come in and I see somebody doing something that, one, I don't like, or I want to do it differently based on what we're representing as a company, as our brand, I really can't tell them how to do it, because it's their company, it's their reality, it's their role, it's their job to do whatever they want to. Really, you're just hiring them to teach Pilates or teach yoga or be a personal trainer or a therapist or whatever. They do what they do how they want to. I think in certain circumstances it can work really well. For example, with a massage therapist or something like that in a facility, you're not going to stand in there telling them how to do a massage. Now, this being said, you also can't tell them what their hours should be. So if you're really trying to grow a business, how do you create structure, infrastructure, with hours and colors and logos and brand stuff, whatever it is, and not tell somebody what to do? I think that's really, really hard. And so you have to have a total hands-off approach to a company if you're going to have contractors, in my opinion. If you want to grow it, if you want to brand it, if you want to have an identity, if you want to have some strength behind what you do, I think it's almost impossible to have contractors. And yeah, the employee piece is a bit more work. I mean, it's going to cost you a little bit more at the end of the day. That being said, you can get into the pay and how much do you pay a contractor versus employee, and you should be able to explain how much it costs to have an employee versus have a contractor, and at the end of the day it should be pretty equal. You should be able to say, okay, I'm going to pay a contractor $40 an hour and I'm going to pay an employee $32 an hour, because that's the difference between what I have to pay versus what they would have to pay. So it's a wash, really, although people have a hard time with that as employees, because it's like, well, I'm not making as much as being a contractor. Well, actually you are, and you have a lot more support. You should be able to have a lot more support as an employee than as a contractor. And if I'm being really honest, most people that come in and that are employees really want to be treated like a employee. They come in as a contractor, they want to be treated like an employee. They want the support. They want to feel included. They want to have you as an owner do things for them. You should provide these things for them, which really you shouldn't. It's your risk at the end of the day. It's not theirs. They can walk away from it. You can't, as an owner, as a business owner. So I would encourage everybody to really look at the independent contractor thing versus employee thing. I think it's a really, really big risk, particularly as you grow a company, to have contractors. Although this industry, at least, has been grown on that model. And if I'm being honest, the IRS is looking. I mean, they're paying attention to studios more and more now. I know, this maybe 5 or 10 years ago, there was a huge pull toward the yoga industry, and them auditing yoga studios, and people were getting hammered. I mean, it was putting them out of business because they couldn't afford to pay the back taxes. And to be honest, I'll tell you, IRS won't go away. You're going to pay the taxes one way or another either way. So I would encourage you to look at it and not take the risk. Structure your business around the employee model. Yes, it's more work. Again, just my opinion. If you can do it, from a contractor perspective, more power to you, because it is kind of easier, but it's also harder to really control your business with contractors. That being said, with employees, you got to support them. You have to run your business through, with systems and structures to where they feel like they're empowered and can really be effective and successful in your business. So I encourage you guys to look at this. Like I had said, it's a tough one. I've had lots of long conversations about one, what this even means, and two, why would you go one way or the other. I've consulted a lot of companies that over our process had switched over. I almost guarantee if you talk to your accountant or your attorney, they're going to say, you really should have employees, not contractors, because you're treating them like an employees. So you don't want to get caught in the middle of this. If you have more questions about this, definitely make comments below. Let me know. I think this is an important one. That's why I'm really kind of putting this one in early on, because without understanding this, it can be a disaster waiting to happen if you're not doing it the right way. And two, if you ever decide to change over from contractors to employees, it's really a sort of a hard process, because there's a lot of psychology involved in what's happening, with people that are working for you as contractors, and what they perceive as being a contractor is, and what kind of control they perceive that they want, which usually isn't necessarily going to change from, switching them over. But it's a tough one to switch over. I recently had a couple people go through it, and it takes a little time. So it's probably easier to start as employees. Anyway, leave messages. Let me know if you have any other questions about this. I encourage you to look at it because it's an important one. And go out there, have an awesome day and an awesome week, and do it to it. We'll see you on the flip side. All right.